Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Street Sociology. Now, for the very few of you who probably enjoy watching this, I am very sorry I haven't done a video in quite some time. I've been incredibly sick, and it wasn't even COVID. It's a total jib. Anyway, to get through today, as you've probably seen in the news of late. Oh boy. Alright, so let's start at the start. My location. Okay, Victoria, Australia. My last video was actually about the mask wearing rules that we had come in, and there was a lot of opposition to that. Accusations of authoritarian practices were made. Well, I don't wear a mask anymore as of yesterday, and unless I'm indoors when I do. But outdoors, you don't have to wear one anymore in Victoria because we've now gone a month with no cases of the virus. None. Zero new cases in Victoria. That's kind of hard to believe. I sort of thought that once we got established here, getting to zero and eliminating it was kind of impossible, but shows what I know because we actually did that. However, I know that more or less every other country in the world is not so fortunate, and while our adherence to public health practices has probably been the primary contributor to our success, I can't just sit here and say that we did it right and everyone else did it wrong. That's not fair, because Australia is very, very fortunate with the distance between our states, between our cities. We were able to shut down travel between states. I am aware that in countries such as Western Europe and the United States, this is really not an option. Part of it was hard work and good leadership in Victoria, and part of it was luck. Now, I am sorry to say that for a lot of you watching from overseas, you're going to go into the hardest winter you've seen in your life. We went through pretty much all of lockdown here in Victoria, all of winter on lockdown in Victoria, and it was pretty much one of the hardest psychological things I've done in a while. And unfortunately, that's going to be winter for a lot of you guys. So I've got some advice. It's not very good, but find hobbies to do inside. I started doing all kinds of crap, making model cars and stuff, not because I'm any good at it, but because I'd go mental just watching Netflix for 4 months. Find hobbies, doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you're going to knit, maybe you're going to collect stamps, even if you can do that anymore. I don't really know, but for the love of God, find something, because trust me, by about mid-December, late December, you're going to be going, oh, damn. So it can be done, it can be eliminated, by most countries in the world are sadly not in a position to do so, and will face a very difficult winter. But good news, vaccines. I'm not a health expert, I'm not going to pretend to be one. What I am going to do, for those of you who are curious, which is a lot of you, I'm going to put a link in the description of this video, okay, to a man called Dr. John Campbell in the UK. If you want factual interpretation of what's going on, you go to Dr. John Campbell. I put the link in. The dude knows what's up. He doesn't have an ideology or an agenda. He looks at it medically and he gives it to you straight. Here's where I go. I'll link you to his very trustworthy hands. But as you probably noticed, there's been 3 vaccines this month who have released efficacy data coming in at 70% for the Oxford vaccines, 94.5 and 95%. For the last 2 being the Pfizer BioNTech ones and the Moderna vaccine. They haven't passed safety trials yet, and none of you need to worry about receiving a vaccine that hasn't passed safety trials, because it's a non-reality. It's not going to happen. Any vaccine that's allowed for public use will have been thoroughly tested and will have been safety approved, because it's simply not in anyone's interest to release a vaccine that was not safe. It would help nobody. So I don't think that's a great concern. I think that these vaccines, if and when they're approved, will be quite safe. Personally, I'm going to get one. I'll get all 3, and I'll get them 1,000 times over if only I could, as long as it means I get to travel again. I've been stuck in Australia now nearly 4 years, and it's not conducive to my choice of lifestyle. So, nevertheless, even though it's going to be a hard, let's say 6, 8, 10 months coming up for a lot of us, even in Australia, the vaccines look good, they look safe. We won't know that until they pass safety trials, but you can rest assured that not one of them will go into anyone's body in a mass vaccination program without having passed the appropriate safety checks. And you can look at Dr. John Campbell for more information on that. Okay, so It's going to be a hard winter, but hope is at hand. Now, there's actually been a bit more than the virus going on in the last, I don't know how long since I made a video, over a month. So I'm going to touch on US politics briefly. And I do mean briefly, okay, because absolutely every man and his dog has got an opinion on this. That they believe is as true as the fact the sky is blue. So whatever noise I make in this video is going to change, not a goddamn thing of anything. Everyone seems to already made up their mind. I can give you an overview. It's very interesting to me that I believe Mr. Biden came in at around 80 million votes and Mr. Trump at around 72 million votes. Now, this movement, some people call it Trumpism, vociferous support of him and his ideology in the face of any and all evidence to the contrary. Some people say that with the defeat of current President Trump by Mr. Biden, that this sort of ideology will die out. That's not the case. 72 million people did not vote for 4 more years of whatever that is, while they've already had over 260,000 deaths from the virus. The mindset of 72 million Americans is aligned along ideological lines. And they believe, they really believe, they got out and voted. 72 million people want 4 more years of the Trump leadership style. Okay, and that's democracy, man. Welcome to it. But we are going to have to accept that pretty much from now onwards, if we hadn't already, that a lot of people do feel strongly the ideology behind his approach. Now, someone like myself with a little bit of experience training on the matter would call it base populism, but there's obviously a lot more to it than that. Quite a lot. But the fact is, we can't ignore these people. They're not gone. Their views, their wishes for the future haven't gone. We're going to have to work on re-including everyone, because the last 4 years has been focused on division of society. Ironically enough, that's what my master's thesis is about, which is currently doing my head in, but that's another story. Telling everyone else they're wrong, it's just not going to fly anymore. We're going to have to find a way to come back to the middle. Now, obviously, the Republican Party and Trump have spent a great deal of blood and treasure trying to undermine the trust in civil institutions and arms of government. Now, that's dangerous for the long term. Even more dangerous than it is in the short term, because if somebody were to come along and use the precedents that President Trump has set to destabilize the fundamental pillars of democracy, but if they actually had a very bad ideological plan as opposed to Mr. Trump, who just wants to look good, then democracy and indeed society would be in the gravest of danger. You might recognize that exact thing happening from Germany in the 1930s, but that's another story. The fact is, we are going to have to try and unite, not just the country, it's not just America. America's the biggest economy in the world, the biggest producer of the cultural, pop culture and stuff. So the divisions that are in America exist in every Western country. Australia, United Kingdom, France, whatever. We're going to have to heal them and stop trying to make them wider. And there's a hell of a lot of misinformation pumped out with social media, and I think it goes without saying it's got rather a good bit worse during the pandemic. So there's some work to do in that regard. Insofar as Mr. Biden and his potential success goes, the man understands the inner working of government very well, and that's important after the last 4 years. But his moral compass seems pretty malleable. He seems to change his opinion on some pretty core issues fairly quickly, and while his age may be a factor, he's not terribly much older than Mr. Trump. So it's going to come down to probably personal ability. Can he be the one to unite America? I don't know, but he's got a better chance than the alternative. I guess we're going to have to see. It might seem not some important American politics to the rest of us in the West, but it trickles down, man, just like trickle-down economics, which doesn't work. This does. What happens in America trickles down to the rest of the Western world. So we've got to be on top of this. We've just got to hope that in the new world we reform after COVID, it can be a little more balanced, equitable, open, perhaps a mixture of these. Yeah, which leads me to my next point, the future. It's a scary time right now. I mean, obviously, there hasn't been this much upheaval and uncertainty on a global scale since probably World War II. I mean, The fall of the Iron Curtain was, as you would imagine, a pretty big deal, not just in Europe, but in a number of countries that were unfortunate enough to suffer from the proxy wars after that. But this is going to have a complete and massive global effect on more or less every facet of society. That is to say, the future is up in the air. But that's not a bad thing. Some might say, and I would be amongst them, that the present prior to COVID-19 wasn't actually very good at all. So sometimes in history, change is the law of life. Sometimes you don't like how the table's set, you need to flip over the table. What will come from this is a new, potentially more equitable world, but certainly one that contains a great deal more thought, I guess. Thought, introspection, consideration of the world around us and how our role is to be in that. The future that's coming is sort of a grand readjustment of that which has been since, again, more or less in a way, the end of World War II. There's been obviously, societal problems, but nothing on a global scale such as this. I feel this is a genuine, our best opportunity any of us will ever have in our lifetime to make changes for the better. So, all I can say is this. Don't fear the future, embrace it. Because it's very likely, after the virus, going to be a lot better than the present is. Anyway, just a thought. Street sociology.